Hey, SamPaul, welcome to Pop Rock Radio. How are you?
Hey man, I'm doing well, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing really good. Hey, before we get too far into
Awesome.
it, the QR code is for your Instagram handle. So anyone scans that code in, it'll take them to the Instagram page, your Instagram page.
That one. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yep.
So I was going to try and point to it, but my wrong arm went up.
Yeah, I'm like this one here,
It did.
there. I lose direction on these
That's
screens,
right.
but we'll have other
All good. They
links.
can see it. That's
Yeah, we'll have all your other links in the description, so people just go down to the description. They'll find all the others, social
no
media,
worries.
and bits and pieces.
Yep.
Um,
Awesome. Thank you.
that's it's all part of the smiling friendly service.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Okay, tell us a bit about yourself because you've got a bit of a rich history in hip hop. You're in Adelaide, aren't you, South Australia?
I am, yeah, Adelaide
Yep.
based. Yep.
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 I believe you
Um,
originally from Darwin, or have you just got?
um, that's a common misconception.
Yep.
In a sense, I was born in Adelaide, but due to family circumstances, we moved to
Yep.
Darwin, um, which is where I did all my schooling. But I didn't really kind of, I guess, discover music until I moved back to Adelaide in 1998.
Yep.
Um, I decided that I wanted to. I never really kind of felt at home in Darwin, so that's kind of what prompted the move
Yep.
back. When I eventually found the, I don't know, motivation, the
Yep.
confidence, I guess, Um, but yeah, so I got my start in hip hop around that time.
Yep.
I didn't really kind of take it too seriously at first, as I guess a lot of people don't. They kind of get into it because it's a form of expression,
Yep.
and just a way to kind of have a bit of fun with their mates. My initial foray into it was through DJing.
Yep.
I'd come from a house and drum and bass background, doing DJing at after parties for raves and things like
Yep.
that, and then landed myself a couple of residencies working with a good mate of mine who at the time was going by the name DJ Raven. There was a club called O2, which was off a side street, there's some interesting information about that particular club that I'd love to share a bit later.
Yep.
But then we moved on from there to another club called Isobar, where I was resident with Raven for about 18 months. And that called for more hip hop R&B. So that's kind of, I guess, where I really got my start. Um, having listened to hip hop when I was a lot younger helped, but that's what kind of got me into the scene, I guess. And I'd started making music after a meeting with a few guys that I met when I got back to Adelaide.
Yep.
Most notably, a guy by the name of DJ Trip, who was making just all kinds of, I guess, electronic based music, and he got me started using a Commodore Amiga, which
Oh
I
yeah.
picked up from Cash Converters, I think, for about $50, and it was all loop based.
Yep.
And I started creating with, like, I wrote lyrics, which I was adding to these things, but I wasn't singing and I wasn't really rapping. It was just almost like spoken word. And one day, my younger brother, who's a massive hip hop head, said to me, "Oh, why don't you like hone it into hip hop? Because you're pretty much already doing that.
Yep.
You need to add a little bit more rhythmicness to the raps, from the sort of spoken word." And so I started to sort of focus on that, and just basically kind of got into it. Really enjoyed it. Finally felt like I had a voice
Yep.
outside of just regular conversation, which I really enjoyed, and I was reached people with it. And yeah, just over time, I slowly honed that craft and kept building from that.
Yep.
But I mean, yeah, there's so many facets to what I do that making music, I guess, is only really one of them.
Yeah, because it's been a long time. It's like nearly 25 years or something you've been doing it. That works about right.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much
Yep.
about 25 years. I'd probably say I started getting really serious in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
It's still a lot of
coming
years.
up on a quarter of a century.
Yeah. 8 albums, is that right? 8 albums?
So there's 8 albums, give or take. I couldn't remember the exact number, but I'll tell you one thing that I came to realize after making music for so many years. I really felt that those earlier albums were more like glorified demos. I
Yep.
didn't really know what I was doing in a lot of respects, particularly when it came to the studio production aspect of it.
Yep.
Um, I had a good grasp of the beat making and the basics of writing and recording rhymes, but when it came to actually mixing and mastering, I didn't really know what I was doing. So
Yep.
I've kind of reframed what I suggest, what I tell people in regards to albums, and say my first album really was a long time coming, which came out in 2000.
Yep.
So with that aspect, I guess I've got 3 official albums with a 4th on the way.
Yep. Oh yeah. So we'll probably get into the fourth one a bit later on. But I've got a few
Sure.
questions for you. What do you think makes
Yeah,
hip
go for
hop?
it.
Yeah, what makes hip hop so popular? Do you think, especially around the youth these
Um,
days?
Well, I guess coming from the historical point of view, hip hop was created in like the Bronx in New York
Yep.
and those kind of areas, and it was quite often in disadvantaged neighborhoods where there wasn't a lot going on. There was a lot of gang
Yep.
activity, um, but the beautiful thing about it was that it didn't really need much to create it.
Yep.
I remember Ice-T made a really good quote in a documentary he released called "Something from Nothing: The Art of Rap." And he said hip hop didn't invent anything; it reinvented everything. And
Yep.
what I think he meant by that was it took elements of different things and created something new from things that already existed, which ironically is kind of the fundamentals behind making beats too. Though sample from old music and create something new from it. So I think that's part of the appeal. It doesn't you don't need a lot. Like realistically, you can rap a cappella, or if you want to step it up from there, you can rap over someone just beatboxing. So
Yep.
you don't even need instruments to really get started. Um, but I also think because of the origins and so forth, I think it speaks to um, you know people in the sense that it gives them like I said before, like it gives them a way to express. Like I'm not suggesting that you should rap because you can't sing, but realistically, if you can't hold a tune, you can still
Yep.
learn to rap, and you might, whether you're good at it or not, it's still a way to express yourself um, musically in a way, and from that as well, it's like almost like a modern version of poetry. There's a lot of similarities between poetry and rap, but there's also differences too. But I think from that standpoint, it's really appealing.
Yep. Yep. Where do you think rap is headed in the future?
Oh, look, that's a really difficult thing to answer. I think,
Yep.
like from what I've seen over the years, like it started out, like sampling, the old funk and soul and so forth, and now we're seeing it at a point, kind of like what rock did, where rock was rock, and then over time it branched out, and then you got all these different versions of rock and different.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know who is behind those, but I think the media probably has a lot to do with it. But it's it branches out into different genres, and I think that's what we're seeing now with hip hop. You've got your boom bap, and then you've got trap, and you've got drill, and all
Yep.
these different kind of subgenres of rap. So I guess moving forward, I'd like to see it kind of continue to branch out. Because one thing I find funny is there's a lot of artists out there that are really staunch on making boom bap, which is great. Like boom bap is awesome, and I love that old school style. But one of the fundamentals to me that appealed the most to rap and hip hop, um, it was a progressive sort of style. Like it was pushing the boundaries and creating something new. And I don't think recreating the 90s and so forth boom bap style is necessarily pushing the boundaries.
Yep.
Lyrically maybe, but as a style of music, I don't think it is. And so I love, like there's a track by 360 who I know you chatted
Yep.
to recently, where that he did with Daniel Johns from Silverchair, where Daniel sings the chorus, and it's got a very dubsteppy kind of
Yep.
vibe, and I love that. I love that they're branching out and bringing in different styles. There's songs out there, rap songs out there that have got like some country elements. There's pop elements, there's rock elements. Look at Linkin Park.
Yep.
They've got rap and kind of rock fused together, and that's one of the things I love about hip hop is the way it just brings in the influences of the artist and creates something quite often new
Yep.
and unique.
Do you think it's becoming more mainstream by incorporating those elements?
Absolutely, on some level, definitely. But then at the same time, there's still a lot of really good underground rap that's still out there, which is also good. But I think it is definitely becoming mainstream. Becoming, I remember in the 80s when I first started kind of getting into rap a little bit from a listener point of
Yep.
view, and a really poorly attempted breakdancing
I remember
phase.
I remember that phase all too well.
Yeah, the broken cardboard box on the street corner with a boombox, which would graffiti it up and
everyone's having
busting out
battles,
some beats and
yeah, doing head spins, back
exactly.
spins, doing the worm, the caterpillar.
Yeah, exactly, all that stuff,
Yeah.
And I remember at the time, my parents and other parents were all saying, "Oh, it's just a trend; it'll never last." And yet here we are, 50 odd years later, and I think it's building and growing, so much. And particularly when we talk about like the Australian hip hop scene, because while Australia hip hop obviously got its roots from the American style, I think in a way we've created almost again like a subgenre of our own.
Yep.
And I remember in the early days, like of groups like the Hilltop Hoods, where like people were like, "Oh, that sounds terrible." You've got that Ocker Aussie accent, but these days it's far more accepted, and I think that just further adds to that growth and that expansion of the genre and the scene. One thing though, if I might just add that I find a bit disheartening is I feel there are a lot of people getting into it that don't really understand or respect the history.
Yep.
And that's kind of a concern, because one of the things that really drew me to hip hop is the fact that it's we those of us that have been around for a while view it as a culture, and with culture you've got the different elements,
Yep.
but most importantly, as KRS-One's known as the teacher in the scene, he quite rightly pointed out there's a fifth element to hip hop, which is knowledge. And you look at any other culture, whether it's like human culture or musical culture, but one of the most important things is sharing that history and passing it on to the younger generations. Yep. And I think for a lot of artists that's kind of been missed. They're like, yep, I can rap, I can make music, I'm going to do hip hop, but they don't really look back to where it came from.
Yep, because that was this is a good segue into a question I had lined up. Like, I wanted
nice.
I want to know. I've got to word it correctly because I don't want to offend anyone, especially us older people. when you have a genre of music, say pop music, it doesn't matter if you're young or old, because pop music generally relates to what's happening at that time. It tells a specific story.
Yeah.
But with hip hop and rap and things like that, there's a certain culture to it. Like you were saying before, there's a culture to it, and it's mainly like when you think of rap and hip hop, it's underprivileged youth you normally associate with that music.
Yeah.
How do you get inspiration? Being a bit older, a bit wiser, and having, like you said, that knowledge, being in that stage, how do you still find the inspiration and the stories to tell in your music?
I guess for me, I would probably say it's just the inspiration never goes away. It's more just, I guess, what inspires.
Yep.
Like when you're younger, like the inspiration seems to be more for a lot of people, going out partying, drinking,
yep,
staying up all hours of night. Whereas for me, where I'm at in my life, I've got a son, so I draw inspiration from him. But also, I guess my values and focus on my life have changed. So I draw inspiration from what's going on in my life.
Yep.
And but also that, not only that, but I started to recognize as I got older the power that I could have in the messages that I shared. And I've gone through a lot of mental health struggles, particularly in the area of anxiety.
Yep.
And I realized that by talking about that kind of thing, that kind of topics in my music, I could reach people that maybe were struggling as well.
Yep.
Whether they're struggling in the same things that I am or just in that mental health space. So I've my music's kind of gone into that kind of mental health space, and I like to talk about, that kind of thing. And it's, the inspiration never really goes away. As I said, it just really kind of redirects to what your focus is, what's important to you as you get older.
Yep.
A lot of people, for example, have criticized Eminem because he's not making the music that he was making, with Slim Shady LP and
Yep.
Marshall Mathers LP. But the reality of it is, just like me, he is an older man now. He's growing up. What's
Yep.
important, what he derives inspiration from has changed, and it's no different for me.
Yep. I just want to go back to when you were saying about the mental health thing, which is bizarre that it's not really bizarre that you brought it up, but it's a conversation I have quite regular. We do a podcast with a couple of friends once a week. We just get together. We're from all around Australia. It's a pair of old jocks, and we just play games on the card games while we're doing a podcast, and we talk about different bits and pieces. One of the guys there, he's an ex-DJ, I'm an ex-DJ, and I've spoken to other DJs, and it's amazing how many DJs grapple with anxiety and have mental health issues. And now it's not saying that the DJing causes those, but it's the people that normally get to going towards, who get drawn into it, have a lot of anxiety. Like Avicii, as a DJ, dance DJ, he committed suicide and bits and pieces like that. Do you see a lot of that? A lot of people getting into the arts and the creative type of thing that have these issues, and they use it as an outlet to combat, the anxiety, depression, or whatever they're going through?
I think, I mean, anxiety and other mental health are definitely quite prevalent across the board, like irrespective, I think, of what field you're in. DJ Raven that I mentioned earlier on, that I used to work with back in the clubbing days, I know he's had some crippling anxiety that he's been dealing with over the years. But certainly other colleagues of mine that work in the DJ industry, I'd probably put in the same category. But I think creative people in general, whether they're music makers or DJs or whatever, just in the creative space, tend to be quite, I guess, in touch emotionally with their feeling, how they feel, and that's how they express it. Particularly, if they're making music, for example, that's something that they express. And in order to express yourself in a really authentic way so that you connect with the people that listen to your music, or DJ sets or whatever, you have to be quite vulnerable. You have to put yourself out there and say, hey, I'm feeling this, or I'm doing that. And I think that really kind of opens the door to things like anxiety. Again, I'm not saying necessarily that those areas are the cause of it, but like you said, I've done a lot of work with my anxiety, seeing psychologists and a counselor, and done a lot of work through that. And what I've highlighted in that for me was that my anxiety actually started way back when I was a kid. I used to believe that I was a shy kid, and in fact, that's what people used to say. Oh, he's just shy. But I realized with the knowledge of hindsight that it was actually me feeling anxious, put in situations that I felt uncomfortable with, and being bullied and treated shit by people in my life, just made me feel crap, and it just heightened that kind of anxious feeling. So from a cause point of view, I guess that's kind of where it stemmed. But certainly, I think creativity does kind of go hand in hand with mental health struggles in a lot of cases, for sure.
All right. Now I'm going to go back to my...
Did I answer that question?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, perfectly. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. No. So I've got a couple more questions for you before we get to our little pink cards. But before you get, like, this is going to revert back to like a lot, pretty much the same question as we just answered. Like when I was DJing, excuse me, I used to get severe stage fright and anxiety. I don't know if it's stage fright, but I think more like anxiety before. And I used to have a bucket. I used to call it Chuck Bucket, and it used to follow me around everywhere before a show. And I would literally dry reach into the bucket. I'd be that nervous. But the moment I go out and hit play on the first track, all that would go away. It would disappear. I want to see. I want you to talk us through how you prep before going on stage to do a performance, either DJing or performing hip hop.
Very similar in a way. I've never had a Chuck Bucket, but quite often I will distance myself. So like I remember this one gig that I did. It was quite a big deal, supporting the game from America. He was over in aid, and I was side of stage, and not nearly chucking, but hyperventilating. Like I almost felt like I needed a brown paper bag. So what I actually did was I actually stepped out, went outside, got some fresh air, and just distance myself from everyone and everything, really, and just try to focus on calming my breathing. But you, like what you said, you almost described exactly the same for me. Like basically, that feeling wouldn't necessarily go away. I'd be able to calm it a little bit, but it wouldn't go away. But as soon as that first beat dropped for my track, I just felt this calm. I had the mic in hand and ready to go, and as soon as I start rapping and the beat dropped, it just seemed to calm me. So but that's probably the main way, would just to distance myself from the event a little bit, step outside, get some fresh air, not be around anyone else for a little while, and just take some good deep breaths, and then just go in.
Yep. Do you have any? Do you have any superstitions or rituals you have before doing a performance?
Not so much these days, but back in my earlier days when I was first starting rapping, I had this one experience where I'd been rehearsing on the day of the show, and when I got on stage, I don't know if it was
we've had a glitch.
Forgot lyrics and fumbled over words, and it was an absolute disaster. And so from that day forth, I refused to rehearse on the day of the gig. And from then, and generally it seemed to work pretty well. But having said that, I'll take rehearsing anytime I can get it. I think that it was a superstitious belief to think that rehearsing on the day was what caused the problem. But these days I'll just rehearse as much as I can, wherever I can. Like whether it's in the car, whether it's on the way to the gig or whatever. I'm not so superstitious about that anymore.
All right, we're going to get into our pink cards. These are basically, it's a segment we call Get to Know. So this is Get to Know SamPaul. They're 10 questions that you probably won't get asked by any other normal adult. So, here we go. We're going to start on the easy ones. Are you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. I don't know where this one come from, but does pineapple go on pizza?
Does pineapple go on pizza? I would have to say yes, definitely. It's obviously not going to be for everyone, but for me, I love pineapple on pizza.
Yep. I've seen kiwi fruit on pizza. That almost made me
Oh, that's different. Although to be fair, kiwi gold, in my opinion, tastes like a cross between pineapple and mango. So I could almost understand how gold kiwi could possibly work.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be game to try it though.
Yeah. Which do you prefer, cats or dogs?
That's a tough one. I'm a bit of an animal lover in general, so I probably wouldn't mind either way. I love the unconditional love you get from a dog. They'll come up and they'll want your attention as much as you'll give it to them. Whereas cats are a little bit more selective. Cats can be a bit snobby, but that having said that, I do like sitting there with a cat on your
Yeah.
lap, patting it, watching TV, whatever.
Yeah, funny you say that.
So probably both.
I've got the studio pups down here stinking up the
Yeah.
place and wanting attention, and it's hard. I've got to keep one hand down, patting one, but if the other one sees it, they'll come up and they've got FOMO. So,
Yeah.
okay, without swearing, what is your favourite curse word or phrase?
Oh, gee. I'd probably have to say the F word.
Yeah,
That's probably the one that would get used the most regularly.
yeah,
But I'm generally a pretty calm kind of person. I think the main time that a word like that would get used for me is driving.
yeah,
I seem to struggle being patient with bad drivers.
yeah. If you want to experience bad drivers, come and drive in Perth on the freeway.
I might have to do that. That Perth is definitely one place that I haven't been yet in Australia that I'd really like to get to. So
Oh,
if there's any promoters out there looking for a DJ or a rapper, reach
yeah,
out.
yeah. But yeah, in Perth, mate, they can't merge onto the freeway. Hey, you'll be doing 100 k's down the freeway, and someone will just come on doing 70 or 80,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh.
Oh,
Well, this next question, I think you've already answered. Where were you born?
yeah. So born in Adelaide,
Yep.
a long time ago.
Yep. Maccas or HJs?
Oh, look, I try to avoid them both. But if I had to choose just between the two, definitely Hungry Jacks, no question.
I read an article somewhere about you that said that you used to like drive around at night looking for cheeseburgers and nuggets.
What?
Yeah, there's an article out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like a good cheeseburger.
Yeah.
And there were many times. In fact, even now after a gig, if I feel hungry, then I'll usually drive around for an open Hungry Jacks. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know about nuggets. I've never. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll tell you the article afterwards because I don't want to give too much away. What's your favourite venue to perform at?
Oh, gee.
It's an opportunity to give a big shout out.
That's a difficult one. I mean, probably one of my favourite venues to DJ that I've done was Ferdy in Melbourne, but I'm pretty sure they've closed down now, unfortunately. But in Adelaide, there used to be a place. I mean, it's still there, but they've got new owners now, and I don't think they do live music. But a good mate of mine over here, who goes by the name of Scoops One, him and his rap partner ID put on a lot of shows over here called Mic Assassins, and one of the best venues that they were doing there was Second Floor Lounge.
Yep.
But they don't seem to really be doing stuff these days, unfortunately, as in the venue. But as far as ones that are still operating, I'd probably like to give a shout out to Beck and the Little Red Door. Yep. They're always really cool, and the crowd always is well behaved and very enthusiastic. So let's go with that, Little Red Door.
Cool. What was the first concert you went to?
I reckon at a guess, and this is going to show my age a little bit, but would have to be Cliff Richard at the Darwin Amphitheatre. Just to give a bit of context. I mean, I'm a fan of Cliff. I think his music's great. But just to give a bit of context, so my dad used to volunteer for the Kiwanis Club. They used to handle the burgers and drinks at the concerts, and in Darwin back then, the amphitheatre was the venue to go to, particularly for big touring artists. Because of the fact there was quite a large capacity and it was outdoors, so it was awesome. And so we, as kids, me and my brothers used to go along with him and would get him for free because he was volunteering there. So that's part of why I was there. Ironically, it bucketed down with rain that night and not one person left. We all sat in the rain and watched Cliff rock out. So, yeah.
That's it. Okay. My first car was a
Toyota Celica, 1977 model. And funnily enough, when I bought it, it was like a multitude of different greens.
Yep.
And so a good mate of mine whose dad worked in auto helped us get in touch with a spray painter who resprayed it for us on the cheap. We just had to do all the sanding.
Yep.
But the funniest part about that was that we actually used house paint. He recommended this green in house paint, thinned it down so that it wouldn't get stuck in the jets, and resprayed it. And I saw the car years later after I sold it, and it was actually, the paint job was still immaculate.
Oh,
So
there you go.
something to be said for a house paint.
Okay, you got to fill in the gap. The two last ones are fill in the gaps. My something got me into trouble.
Mouth.
Yeah, yeah, that's a pretty common answer. That
I
one.
I as a kid, I always spoke. I mean, I probably do it now too, but I always spoke before I thought.
Yeah,
And yeah,
cool.
didn't go down well always.
Yeah, and the last question: I lost my something at the cinema.
Oh, I don't know really what to say about that one. Always pretty well behaved. The closest I can think of to answer that doesn't really fill the gaps, but kind of just, I guess, a cinema related incident was like the typical cliche going to the movie marathon where there's like 3 or 4 movies in a row and only watching one and then going off cruising with mates in our cars and stuff. So I don't know, maybe some degree of innocence was lost in that respect. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, that's all my questions. You said before you wanted to go back and visit some of the other questions. Do you remember what they were?
Oh, far out. There was something that we. What were some of the early questions? I'm just trying to think. I think it was in one of the first. Hey.
Oh, I got the worst memory. I can't remember what I just said.
Oh, okay. That's all right. I don't remember either. I know there was something that I wanted to.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on, but
it wasn't CO2 or something like that, was it? Where did I get that from?
What's that?
CO2.
CO2.
Yeah, I don't know where I got that from.
I don't know either. God.
There we get this.
Nah.
We've got two senile old DJs.
I'm sure there was a good story in something that I was thinking about while answering one of the questions, but I don't. Unfortunately, don't remember it now. So.
we can rewatch the video and then we can come back to it and do a second video later.
All right, sounds like a plan.
So, what's the plans for SamPaul? What's going forward from here?
Okay, so probably the most pressing plans are I have an EP that I've been working on with a Townsville-based artist, Ghosty G.
Yep.
Called Life Sentences, which is coming out on the 2nd of May. So that's the first thing. I'm really excited about that. It's already been garnering some radio play thanks to some sneaky release to those stations. I've got a couple of really cool things coming up as well. I've entered a talent competition which kicks off next week over here. So I'm jumping up on stage for that.
Yep.
This week I'm actually performing it's basically a heat to win a chance to play on Sunday at Gather Round for the AFL. So I'm doing that this week, and moving forward as far as music goes, I've got a DJ gig in July, which I'm doing in Melbourne as part of a Doof festival over there, playing an old school drum and bass set, which will kind of take me back to my DJ roots. And I've got a new full length album that I'm recording at the moment under SamPaul.
Yep.
Which I'm hoping to have released around September of this year. I had to push it back a little bit because of the EP with Ghosty, because we didn't want to,
you can't clash
either of them to outshine the other one. So we're releasing the EP together next month, and then around September I'll have my next album, which is called A Good Hard Look.
Yeah, well done. Just looking forward to seeing it all come out. So thank you for joining us on Pop Rock Radio. It's been a pleasure having a chat with you.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and rewatch the beginning and get the list of questions and get you back so we can do a part 2.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I wish I could remember because, I just feel like it would have been good to mention. But anyway, like you said, we'll rewatch and come back.
Yeah. So it's good. Make sure you keep in contact because we love to keep up to date with what's happening across all genres of music and the scenery, from all around Australia. So we don't judge where you're from, if you're from Adelaide or Melbourne or New South Wales, Queensland, doesn't matter, Northern Territory.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's good to see that the music scene is thriving or growing in all areas. So
It certainly is.
yeah, so thanks.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. The endings are always the worst because everyone's going, yeah, thanks, yeah, and you don't know where to end it. But
oh, good.
All right, you take care.
You too, mate. Thanks again.
Cheers.
When I lose my mind and the stress gets too real, when I'm overwhelmed and I just can't deal, and you were there for me when I can carry on. You're all I need, you're my valley, yeah.
Some days I wake, I can't get out of bed. Doubt amplified by the voices in my head. Don't wanna face the day, it's outside I dread. Heart palpitations with every word that's said. It's a daunting task, my mind fills with fear. My body shakes and my eyes fill with tears. Vision is blurred, can't seem to see clear. Irrational thoughts are all I can hear. Doubts bounce through my head like a ping pong ball. Keep picking myself up every time that I fall. I try hard not to slouch and stand tall, but I keep fucking up like a better call soul. But since I met you, I'm a better person. Without changing me, I'm a better version. You're giving me the patience of a surgeon, and I'm even more determined.
When I lose my mind and the stress gets too real, when I'm overwhelmed and I just can't deal, and you were there for me when I can carry on. You're all I need, you're my valley, yeah.
As I get older, I see life more clear. I used to miss opportunities due to fear. Shy away from things I'd compromised, then regret that I hadn't even tried. Many nights I'd cried, disappointed in myself. I should have been writing chapters for the bookshelf. Things got dark, but I couldn't see the dawn. But all that changed the day you were born. A complicated birth is what we named your chance. Couldn't believe I could hold you in my two hands. You're a calming force, like being barefoot on the sand. You diffuse me every time that I'm mad. You were hospitalized at 7 months. Had trouble breathing, infection on the lungs. Brave little bear, you never gave it once. He epitome of peace like a single white dove.
When I lose my mind and the stress gets too real, when I'm overwhelmed and I just can't deal, and you were there for me when I can carry on. You're all I need, you're my valley, yeah.
When it's all too much, the world's weighing on me. You're the calming force that helps me see clear when my focus leaves and I forgot my dreams. You're the energy force that keeps me grounded. When it's all too much, the world's weighing on me. You're the calming forces that help me see clear when my focus leaves and I forgot my dream. You're the energy force that keeps me grounded.
When I